I'm Josiah Rizzo.
I'm Benji Jones.
And on Wednesdays, we wear pink.
Welcome back to the Pink Popcast, a pop culture podcast where we talk about film, media,
and everything else.
and the impact that it's leaving or has left on our generation.
I'm glad that we finally got that on the 6th try.
What are you talking about for all these viewers?
I said it perfectly, but somebody didn't want to give up control.
That's true. That's true.
Anyways, who are we here with today?
You're the one introducing
Our
him.
guest today is Pastor Eric Johnson.
Woo! Also, do you see what I'm wearing?
Yes.
It's the shirt you gave me, written and directed by In Pink. You're welcome.
Look at that.
And we've previously had you on our show before.
Yes.
And
which was
of
a
course-
total joy.
That was amazing. And let's shake it up a bit by talking about something a little bit more somber.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How do we get more somber than a Pixar film? I don't know.
I think we like to acknowledge, we need to acknowledge that you came again in full force pink.
Oh yeah, can you casually
head to toe.
can you casually show us the toe?
The toe? Oh, here we go. The toe. There
The-
you go.
The last
shoes.
time you were completely decked out and we were cutting you off. So at least now we can see it. But for those of you listening, once again, sorry.
Somber.
So-
Right, yes.
Today we had you on because we want to start it off with an old classic, at least to me. I don't know. You watched this growing up, Benji?
Yep.
Okay. So it's a classic for me.
But new to me.
New to
That's-
Pastor
Oh,
Eric.
my
That's
God. I didn't know
interesting.
this existed.
Which is insane because when I thought about this, I thought everyone had seen this, and I would have assumed that they would have. I mean, it came out in 1999, and it is an educational cartoon called Our Friend Martin, which is not about the what is his name, Martin Lawrence character,
Oh my God.
but is instead about Martin Luther King Jr. And the best way to describe it is a time traveling romp.
Through civil rights, basically.
With X-Men animation.
There you go.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what it was reminding me of. I couldn't put my finger on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
So,
absolutely the X-Men of the
Right.
90s.
Right. Yeah.
So
Very
with
much so.
with Martin Luther King Jr. Day coming up, we figured we
With
could
it,
talk about this.
It's happened.
It's happened
Because we filmed this on the day.
It's gonna be we're doing it after.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it's Monday.
So 2 days ago,
2 days ago,
when we celebrated,
Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
yeah,
Now we're gonna talk about this.
Yep.
Yes.
Our friend Martin. I cannot believe you never saw this. It's kind of one of those things I don't remember watching for the first time. I just kind of remember always being there.
Mhm.
And it was absolutely it might not have been my introduction to Martin Luther King Jr., but it was the cementing oh, this is how I know who he is
Yeah.
because of media.
So how did you end up seeing it?
Like I said, I don't remember. It's always been there. But I mean, I was homeschooled. I don't know if we've ever mentioned that.
So was it something that you saw at home or at a friend's? Or
No,
your
my
parents'
mom
or-
would have definitely rented that.
Okay.
I mean, because my mom knew me better than anyone. She knew that you don't cement things with Rizzo
No.
unless it's in a film.
Yeah.
Mm. There you go.
And it absolutely worked. I went back and rewatching it recently. I was like, whoa, I can't believe all these things I kind of remembered. And then all the things I completely didn't. We'll get to it as we
Yeah.
go through the story. But there was definitely parts of that film I went, I only remembered the important historical aspects. I didn't remember
Right.
The
just
story.
yeah, because they go full on Back to the Future Part 2 in it, and they no spoilers, but they make some choices halfway through the film.
There's some
Yeah.
that I don't. When I was watching that again, there was some pieces where I was like, "Did we show that in school? Like that?"
Are you talking about the
It's a little
Birmingham
rough.
riots? The Birmingham riots?
No, just the parts where the cartoons were being racist towards each other.
Yes.
Right.
And
Yes.
calling each other Negroes. I was like,
Yeah, I
"Oh."
know. With all the stank behind wanting to say something else, I was just
Yeah.
I was watching this in public, and there were a few moments where I audibly went, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
in a tea restaurant. Just I shouted out loud because I wasn't, and then of course getting towards the end, I was crying, just it's you can't see me in public doing this.
Yeah, that's why I don't do things in public. I
No.
like to have my private emotions privately.
So
So, how does this story go? What was your thoughts watching it for the first time?
My thoughts was I couldn't believe it was made.
is that a good thing, or is it more
I
like
don't-
a?
It was almost like A Christmas Carol.
I could see that.
Like the ghost of racist past, the ghost of racist present, and the ghost of racist future. I mean, it was stunning.
It was
So many adjectives. I'm like, that could go both
I know,
ways. I'm
right?
really
Yeah.
not sure.
a beautiful movie.
I mean, I liked the message.
Absolutely.
I mean, overall, I liked the message.
Yeah.
So-
I was just stunned at the execution of the story.
So in the film, we have Miles, who is our protagonist, and for some reason, the only black kid in school who doesn't know the importance of Martin Luther King Jr.
I
For
think
some
he
reason.
just seems to not really be worried about it.
I don't know if he's
As-
worried because he's like, what has he ever done? I'm like,
He's like a complacent, like 20th century kid who grew up without kind of racism in his life, so it's not really a big deal for him.
racism didn't
the
exist
thing.
in the 90s.
And he's like, he wants to be like a ball.
he wants to be.
player.
He wants to play
be a
baseball.
sports person.
Which I had never known prior to this that Martin Luther King Jr. Loved baseball.
Right.
So
Didn't know that either. That was a first.
weird
Same.
humanizing things. Then Miles goes on. Apparently he's failing history.
Yes.
Susan Sarandon is voicing. It's got a. By the way, did you start recognizing voices as you were listening to it?
Yeah,
Yes.
like I didn't as a
Yes.
kid. I thought the teacher was Susan Sarandon. Why did it? I feel like IMDb told me it was like.
No, we've got the voice cast is pretty. You have
It's intense. Like
Robert Richard or Richard. I don't know. Okay, do you recognize this guy? He's Touched by an Angel, Coach Carter, House of
yeah.
Wax.
Yeah.
That's where I knew him from.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of things. Meet the Browns, Vampire Diaries. Oh no, yeah, Vampire Diaries. This guy, he did the voice of Miles.
oh yeah, he was in it. He was Bonnie's mom's like ward because they weren't related and they were kind of into each other. and
Okay.
he like died. It was like a whole.
So he plays Miles, and then
He was in One on One. He was the love interest.
Lucas Black of the Too Fast, Too Furious fame.
Oh my God.
He does the voice of the randomly hick, like surfer skateboarder best friend
Wait,
character.
like
Can we-
super hick.
So hick.
So hit. Can we
Yeah.
talk about though how like really hot he was? Even though they're supposed to be in, like the 6th grade, so that's
They're like
creepy, but-
cartoons. And then
Never-
actually Dexter King, who is Martin Luther King Jr.'s son, played Martin Luther King Jr. at the age of 34 in the cartoon.
That's so cool.
wow.
Which is
Oh,
really
that is
awesome.
cool.
LeVar Burton played him at age 26, and Jaleel White played him at age 15.
That's Urkel.
Yes. Isn't that insane?
All right.
That's fine.
Then we have a few others. We've
I
got
have a dream. Laura, I have a dream.
Wow.
the March on Washington. All the people are there. Did I do that?
other voice. Wow. Other voice artists, of course, are Angela Bassett, who always adds credibility to anything
Yes,
she's
absolutely.
on.
She plays the mom, right?
Yes, she does. Danny Glover, who in recent years can be a hit or miss when it comes to credibility.
He is not Donald.
I'm like-
related.
I'm always just
anything.
like, Danny, you're so much better than these roles that you're in.
Yes, very much so.
Samuel L. Jackson, Samuel L. Mother effing Jackson,
Yes.
who I was
Yes.
pretty sure he sounds so angry in everything he does.
Yeah, it's like he
Yes.
literally had the
Yes.
one line.
He
He's
was
the angry
just short of
townsperson.
saying MF.
I know.
Oh
He-
yeah,
I can't
'cause
remember what the word was he used, but it was just so
Crackers?
close.
No,
He
would he
was
say
ramping up
crackers?
the
Yeah,
tight-
I think
the
so.
crowd.
Yeah.
Whoopi Goldberg, who I actually particularly like. So she is in charge of
The museum.
giving the tours.
The house.
yeah, the
house
Museum of Martin Luther King
Right.
Jr.
So she sets these kids up real hard.
Yeah. Daddy King is portrayed by James Earl Jones. And then I'm pretty sure there's a part at the end
Yes,
where
he goes
he's in the
full
clouds.
Mufasa.
I was like,
I was
Right.
like, I looked up the dates of release because
Right.
I was like, was this after Lion King? Because they know what they were doing. with that
I
one.
was waiting for some Robert Guillaume character to say, Martin, you don't know who you are.
Can't be mad. It's in the
actually,
past.
honestly, it kind of follows that.
It does.
It does.
And then apparently John Travolta was in it, but I didn't realize that. Oprah Winfrey, because of course. I like how Oprah Winfrey decides when she wants to be in something of importance. She's just like, I don't act. I'll act for you.
I feel like she probably like hears about projects and is like, "Hey, so I'm gonna be on this. I think it's cool. Yeah, okay."
It's like a more
See you
subtle
Tuesday.
Beyonce where it's just like she comes in, everyone goes, ah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, here you go.
Right.
you know, and of course, because she was also in that Ava DuVernay film, the Selma.
Right. And The Color Purple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I haven't seen it.
Yes.
And
that other Ava DuVernay film that trashed one of my childhood icons, A Wrinkle in Time. But I won't. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Yes, let the anger rise in you now. See. And then of course we had Ed Asner, who was he played Mr. What's
The
his
principal,
name?
right?
He played like the super racist principal.
Well, he wasn't racist. He was only racist in the future when they messed up
Yes.
the past.
So you
Yes.
mean when you could be
In
racist?
the Ghost of Racist
he was
Future,
racist.
he was racist.
Well, no, because he was a normal principal, and then
Right.
in the
It's amazing how the only
I'm trying
thing
not
that
to ruin the plot.
I was like, the
but-
only thing that changes is just the circumstances that allow people to be nasty.
Yeah, true.
right.
So anyway, so they go. Miles is failing his history. Yes,
And Aaron
pinpoint.
Samuels.
He was not in that film.
He could have been. We don't know.
So Miles is failing history in a very 90s fashion. The teacher's like, you got to get your stuff together.
Or you're gonna be held back.
And he was like, oh, man. And his best friend's like, oh, man, I'm a 90s best friend, even though it's like 1999.
You know.
And they go to Martin Luther King Jr.'s house. Whoopi Goldberg is being like very sassy. She catches them sneaking off and being bored. And she mentions a few times like, this house is magical.
And they're like, what does that mean?
And then they're like, we're bored.
Does
We're
that
gonna...
mean like a hocus pocus?
I thought he was mentioning my favorite movie, and he was like, no, just Hocus Pocus Abracadabra. And she was like, I was like, my movie.
So yeah, that's the best friend character.
But yeah, so
who,
they-
by the way, is white. I don't know if we
It's a white kid
because
and a
that
black
comes into
kid
play.
are best friends. Yeah. So basically, they walk past Martin Luther King Jr.'s room that he grew up in.
They
and
see his
then
baseball
The
glove.
tour goes on, and they're like, "No, let's stay here and let's like jump the rope and let's go look at the stuff." And then she catches them, and she's like, "You know what? I like you guys. I'm gonna let you look around here for a few
But
minutes.
first,
But first, let me wind this watch, because for some reason I have to do that every time I walk in here." And she
is
winds
that
the
is that a
watch.
Whoopi Goldberg
It
impression?
is.
There you go.
She walks out, and then of course they're touching stuff, and they touch that glove, and the movie gets started.
And then they go dun 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 dun, dun back in time. That was the
Is that Back to the Future?
yeah, that's the Back to the
Okay.
Future thing. There you go.
And they go, "Whoa."
And then what
Segment
happens?
Brought to you by Huey Lewis and the News.
Yeah.
And then so obviously when you're dealing with a kids film, you have to distill racism down to like the simplest
Yeah.
of terms. And so they're playing baseball with Martin Luther as a kid, and they're like, "Whoa, this is radical." I also love how instantly they're like, "Oh, okay, we've time traveled."
Yeah.
Right.
You know, they're just like,
I mean,
Right.
at a certain point, you just gotta be all like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. This
Right.
is time travel. Like,
But then of course they witness firsthand, like a white mom comes up and gets really pissed off that her two white kids
are
are
playing with black people. And she's like, "Hey, your father would tan your hide if he saw you. Let's get out of here."
and she says, that's when she said, "I don't want you hanging out with those."
Negroes.
And I was like,
And I was like, that's rough, but also like, it would have been niggas or niggers.
Oh.
It would have been rough.
I suddenly had a flashback to Spike Lee's Bamboozled.
"Oh yes,
When they run through the whole dissertation of the different words that were being used,
Mhm.
Alabama porch monkey, da da da.
yeah."
And I could just imagine any number of racial slurs being used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In real life.
Is this one of the wait? So you, when you were watching it, you said what were the adjectives you used? I was floored watching this. Oh,
Yeah, it just I don't know. I can't even put words.
I don't know why your amusement.
Yeah,
it's so
it was
amusing
just-
watching you react to this
It was
animated
like,
film.
oh wow, it's the magic school bus and racism. It was just,
Absolutely.
Yes.
That is exactly
yes.
what it is.
So it was, and like you said, boiled down to the most simplistic thing. So they time traveled, and it was, oh cool, we time traveled. But there was not necessarily the sense of danger.
No,
Oh,
Yeah.
not at all.
which there should have been.
They were
Right.
doing some stupid stuff, and I was like,
Right.
y'all would have gotten
Exactly.
your asses beat
Right.
a lot.
Right.
Because they're running around in the 50s as if it were 2020. Like,
Right.
we can be friends. Like,
Right.
oh, you told me my black
Right.
self to get out of here. I'm gonna walk in
Right.
anyway. Like, no, no, honey.
Miles looking directly at a white person
Mm.
and talking to them
Yeah.
and even sassing them instead of looking down and saying sir. So I mean just or
Yeah.
or ma'am, just that alone would have brought the police.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And
it
that's
just,
something that I wouldn't even have known not to do.
Yeah, I would
Right.
have. I would not
And,
have thought of
for
that.
him, like, I'm like, who raised you? Because my parents, like, I was raised around all white people, but my parents were still like,
yeah.
you better, like, if in my day, blah blah blah. So I'm like, I
That's-
feel like he should have known.
That's what makes the opening so kind of like when he's just like, "What did Martin Luther King ever do for us?" I'm like,
Right,
"What?
right.
How? What?" I knew what Martin Luther King did for me. Like, what are you talking about?
Especially since his mother is so progressive.
That's
Yeah,
what
it's
Like,
I
how
know.
in the world do you not know?
Yeah.
I know. If
Yeah,
it was like
so
a
it
white
was-
mother who had
yeah.
adopted him, it was just like,
Yeah.
Right.
That would be.
Right.
but
So
I
already the suspension of
We-
belief.
because I'm pretty sure it's
done.
is it Angela Bassett who does the mother's voice, and
Right.
it's just like, you know, I don't hear Angela Bassett's voice and think of someone who doesn't know a thing or two, like
It doesn't
Right.
know how to tell somebody.
doesn't
like,
know how to raise a child. Like
Right.
that voice just commands power,
Yeah.
and for that kid to be like, ooh,
Right. Yeah, and exactly. I mean, because she's so authoritative
Mhm.
about, no, you're going to come back home. You're going to do your homework.
Yeah.
You know, so all that authority and a black woman running a business, and you didn't run through civil rights with your child. That is not going to happen in any black home.
that is not
no,
correct.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So I haven't had a chance to mention this movie yet, but it was one of my favorites. Not of last year, of 2 years ago, was The Hate You Give.
Right.
And it starts off with the father basically sitting his two kids down and giving
Yes.
them this is what you're gonna have to do if you're like pulled over.
Right.
This is which is like, and they're kids. Like one of them's like less than 8 years old.
Right.
And I just like, I mean, I'm watching this going like, oh, this is commonplace. Something I never had to.
Right.
I never had. Did you have? Is that like a talk?
I mean, yeah, not only did we get the talk, when I was growing up, my mother constantly went through civil rights
Mhm.
and iconic black icons.
Mm.
So, I mean, you learned if the history was not going to be taught at school, we
Yeah.
learned it at home. I mean, that's just what happened.
Yeah.
So I think to have this kid so not woke in a
Yeah.
household the way that the mother's portrayed.
Right.
If the mother was just sort of
Mother wasn't voiced by Angela Bassett.
Right.
right, yeah,
Like,
exactly, yeah.
honestly.
yeah. You can't portray a mother that
Yeah.
way and then make me believe that now Miles could if I don't know, I guess if there was a way to further demonstrate that he just didn't care, that
Mhm.
mom was giving him these lessons.
Oh, and he was
Yeah.
just.
yeah,
He's
but
just
he
not
was-
listening. Yeah.
Okay, then I would.
Yeah.
I
Well,
could go
I
for
was
that.
struck by watching this at like the way it was written. There was so many things I was like, oh my god, you could do that differently. But I was like, at the very basis, this would make for an interesting like I don't know remake or like
Yeah.
Oh,
the
I agree.
idea is
I
like
agree.
awesome.
Yeah.
Right. The white bully who's being bullied by his father.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Yeah, that was one that they just kind of, that was like a hit that they just kind of went like, whoop,
Right.
we're not going to lean into that, but that could have been big. But
Right.
sorry.
But also, I love
Yeah.
how we're criticizing what essentially was just like poor setup, just to be like, just get to the educational part, teach
yeah,
these
and I think
kids.
that's what it
right.
was. It really
Yes,
was just about.
That's exactly what it was.
Mhm.
It was like we're gonna color over this with animation, but we're gonna give you thousands of facts right now,
Yeah,
and then unrealistic human interaction.
yeah, exactly.
But I will say I was shocked because, like, so as it happens, they start progressing through Dr. King's life, and you know, the first time we meet him, he's in school, or no, he's a high school student just playing baseball, talking about how he wants to be one of the greats, like Jackie Robinson.
yeah,
Wait, did he say Jackie?
He
no,
probably
it's
didn't
Hank
say-
Aaron. It's
you're
Hank Aaron.
There, sorry,
Yeah.
that just shows how little I know about sports.
Right.
yeah, it was like,
Right.
Sports guy.
I couldn't
Right.
tell you.
The Babe? I don't know. But then they fast forward to him. He's just about to join college, and I believe his dad's doing what is it, sit-ins or walk-ins?
Oh yeah, they were doing some. They were, yeah. walking to do like different sit-ins or something.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you start to get this idea. They're portraying King as being someone who was constantly kind of like putting others before himself and
Right.
thinking. And the thing that they don't really touch upon is like you kind of, in a lot of ways you were forced to be like that. You didn't have the luxury of being able to just be
Think about yourself.
self-centered 24/7. So, and then they fast forward to whenever he's actually they're doing the what is it called, the sit-ins for the bus,
Yeah, the bus
the
boycott.
bus boycott. And it's interesting because they start kind of like showing flashes of like videos of like real actual
footage.
footage, kind of like just in the background. So it's like you get a faint hint of what's really happening as he's talking and explaining. And you see the progression of kind of like, we're going to boycott the buses, but we're doing this as a very peaceful protest.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course Samuel L. Jackson's character is like, nah, we're not doing this
Right.
peacefully. And
Not
then
peaceful.
he talks him down. But all this time, it's a very subtle, like they're subtly interacting and introducing these videos. But then it gets to the Birmingham riots, and it full on shows footage
Yeah, of everything.
of
Right.
like.
Yeah. And they
Right.
like mix in footage and like animation, of
animation,
that footage.
right.
But it cuts just shy of showing things that you don't want to see. Like, I was shocked that they actually showed the police first starting in a cartoon releasing the dogs,
Yes.
and then it showed the footage of them heading to it, and right
Yes.
before something happened, it cut, and I was like,
Right.
Yeah.
I was sitting in the tea shop just like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
yeah.
Even showing the hosing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
of
They
children and young people.
They
That
showed a
was-
lot of that.
And that, I think it was like expertly done, where it's like, oh, just
Yes.
subtle things here,
Yes.
and then boom. Now you have to kind of watch this, kids.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. I appreciated that they didn't sugarcoat that. They
No.
really put it out there. It was just interesting that when the two boys come back in time the first time, they are spouting out all this historical stuff
Uh-huh.
that
That
they
wasn't-
did not experience.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I laughed at that. No, I thought you were going to mention the fact that they integrated their cartoon images
Oh, well,
in
that
the
was
real life
later,
footage.
later,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that's how the classmates start to find out. They're like, hey, did you go back in time? I was like, did
Right.
they?
But it shows them like 10 or 12 times. Like it shows them a lot, like long shots. And then there's one scene where they're kind of off to the side and somebody's like, hey, wait. Like after 10 minutes of watching this video, they're
Right.
like, is that you?
So to explain for those who don't know, eventually Miles and his friend Randy come back, and like you mentioned, they like burst into the school and start like spouting off all this historical facts. Like I was sitting there going, like as a kid, I didn't realize. I was like, oh yeah, those are all things they experienced, and now I'm like,
No.
I don't think they experienced
No,
those.
no,
That's
no.
in the future.
Right.
And then and then as they're in class spouting this information, it's while the teacher is showing footage from the Birmingham riots,
Yeah.
and they do it tastefully. Like it's not like them getting hosed down, but like after all that footage, then they're showing the footage of like the aftermath, and they've integrated the cartoon.
Yeah.
Right.
Into like people
Yeah,
marching and
right.
stuff like that. And
Right.
like they were
They
like,
have the cartoons in the live action footage, and like Benji said, it takes about 10 times of them showing it to finally they're in the background, and one of the students is like, hey, were you guys time
is
traveling?
that you two?
And at this point, then the movie starts to take an interesting turn that I completely forgot about. Like,
yeah,
Right.
same.
I had blanked out, but it goes full on. Like they go back in time.
Yeah, because they left right in the Birmingham riots, and
Yeah.
they're like, we have to go back and find out what happened.
Right.
And so they were like, after school, after the whole report, and like with
Mhm.
them being integrated in, they ran back to the house, and they were like, yeah, we're gonna like go back and
Wind the
see
clock.
how it went. And then the two other friends, the bully and the like
Latino
Latina
stand-in girl.
girl, was like, oh, what are they doing? Like, let's follow them. So they end up all going back to the I Have a Dream speech, the March on Washington. And then they're like, cool. And then you know what? There's like this really cute moment that they just kind of gloss over again. That I was kind of like, oh, where like the bully all the time, like his shirt, like he never makes the bus and his shirt always gets ripped, and his dad
yeah.
like, is so mean to him. And then like they were like, oh, like Martin's dream is that basically everybody can make a change and everybody can choose to be good and choose to put good into the world. And then like right as he does that, right as they're saying that, Miles runs off and goes and gets like a promo shirt and like gives it to the bully because his shirt is ripped and he's walking around,
Right.
and he was kind of like, what, thanks. And it was like such a cute moment. And I was
Yeah,
like,
it
oh,
was.
that's so sweet.
It was.
And then they kind of like, it was just over, and I was like, let's lean into like him being good to him and like him like changing his opinions.
Right.
Like that's not. But anyways, yeah. So then they do that, and then they come back to the
Right.
future again.
Apparently didn't know that Martin Luther King died.
Yeah, come back to the,
Right.
yeah. Didn't know he was assassinated. Find
Angela
that out.
Bassett, what are you doing? Not teaching your kid.
anything. So they find that out. But then again, actually, I don't think I knew that until I watched this. So
That's true.
that might be something that's been glossed over a lot. But yeah, so then they find that out and they're like, we have to go back and save him. And then these kids geniusly go back to when he was a kid and bring him back to the future.
And now it's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life. It's Back to the Future Part
Right.
2.
Right.
It get like, and I completely blanked on this.
Right.
yeah.
My memory was bits and pieces of the opening, nothing in the middle, and then I absolutely remember the ending. Like the ending stuck.
In high, ain't no valley low.
Oh yeah.
So they bring him back, and then when they bring him back, they're all four there. But when they come back, it's just Miles and Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy comes up with the bully, and they're of course racist.
They're racist now because they're both
Yes.
white.
Because modern America is Potterville.
You're right.
Right.
Yeah,
So this is Potterville, America.
and
All
this
white
is of
people
course
racist.
America where
No.
none of the Civil Rights
Yeah,
Act
right.
happened.
Right. Because there's no Martin
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
To
Martin
start
Luther King
that.
is George Bailey.
Yeah. So without him, a lot of stuff didn't happen.
He goes looking for Coretta in the
But
library.
it annoyed me because he ran around this city being like, what's going on?
Right.
Why is everybody like, why are my friends being mean to me?
Right.
Why is my mom not working a better job? Like, why is the teacher, like, why is the principal being racist? Which is what I meant. That was his original principal. That's
Oh,
not
right.
racist
Yes.
in the future, but since he
Yes.
changed the past,
Right.
he's racist now.
Right.
And so he's just like, what's going on? And he's so confused. And I'm like, bro, he's like, it's like you changed all of this. And it's like, no, he didn't. He's 12 right now. Like, he obviously didn't do anything.
Yeah, the
Like,
Civil
do
Rights
you not know
movement
how
didn't
time travel
happen.
works? Like, so, and then we have the after this whole escapade, seeing how things would have been different without Martin Luther King.
Mhm.
You know, he sees his father in the clouds, who is Mufasa, and
Yes.
makes a full Mufasa moment with James Earl Jones. Son, you what was it that his dad was taught him? He basically says,
Oh, I have that written down.
What is it? Every man can make a difference.
yeah.
Yeah, so they do that, and basically it's actually, and this is where my memory did click back in, because this moment
Yeah.
ruined me as a
Yeah,
child.
right when he like stood up, I was like, oh yeah, like
You remembered, and I'm like welling up thinking about this, but essentially Martin stands up and very somberly is like, I know what I have to do.
Right.
yeah,
And he
Right.
he like takes the watch that's been magical all this time and winds it. And then, God, like think about it. He walks back towards his house, which has been destroyed in this Potterville
Yeah.
version of
Right.
the future.
Right.
And it slowly starts winding back and coming back together as you see Martin go from like age 12 to
So,
modern day. Was it
full grown.
34? Was it 34, 35?
Yeah.
Full man.
With Miles yelling, "No,
And
Martin!
he's shouting out,
No,
and the
don't
score is
go!"
like building up, and you just watch him with this like this elegance and this like this understanding of destiny, just walking towards. Then it cuts to black, then it cuts to real life footage of Martin
Yes.
walking out on the porch of that hotel or
Right.
motel,
Yes, the Lorraine Hotel.
and then it cuts to black on a gunshot,
yes.
yeah.
and I fucking died as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was not
Yeah.
ready for that.
So, as a kid, I don't think I knew. I don't think I knew before watching this that he was assassinated.
Right.
And so I definitely didn't know that he died at a motel. This is what my brain put together from that scene was he Martin went back into his home
Mm-hmm.
and, like grew up or whatever. And Miles ran and was like banging on the doors like, Martin, no. They cut to a cartoon hand of Martin opening the door, and they cut to a real clip of him walking outside and
Uh-huh.
getting shot. So I was like, bro, you just got him killed. That was like, I was like, as a kid, because I didn't know
Right.
that they cut
Right.
to like, no, this is a whole other place at a whole
Ah.
other time.
Right.
So like, up until like literally when you just sent the pictures of like this was the hotel where he was killed, I was like, oh, he wasn't killed at his front porch when Miles was knocking on the door.
Ah,
Like I totally thought he like walked out to get the mail one day and was killed.
Right.
Like
Where
what I
was
thought
Angela Bassett?
to teach me?
Where was
that.
Angela Bassett to teach you these things? No, that was something
It's just like banging his head.
that yeah, I wasn't ready for it, and I remember I don't remember much from watching this film, but I do remember just being like in shock, like
That is the absolute
Right.
one thing that I always remember about the movie was that ending where I was like, he definitely gets shot at the end. Like, I know
Wow.
that.
and to this day it left an impact where I was like, you know, even if you know all the details or you just know that there was something worth fighting for, it was a good start to realizing, like, I remember that for me, you know, when you don't necessarily have to have like constant conversations, you know, not that my parents had conversations with me and were explaining history and the importance of, you know, everything that the civil rights movement was about, but I didn't need it per se. So it's like you know, certain media, that's what worked for me. What was like, you don't need this, but let's cement it so you
Yeah.
know how you're
Absolutely.
benefiting, you know,
Right.
from this.
But that's good because then if you ever do start to get complacent, you know, like, oh, like there's
Right.
more going on.
Which is hard it's like, how do you teach people who can be complacent? You know, how do you kind of like, because obviously, you know, if there is someone like at the beginning of that film, The Hate U Give, it's just like they need to have that conversation.
Right.
Dad needs to sit down with
Yeah,
them,
right.
tell them the importance of their names, tell them the importance of their rights, and it's just like that's not a normal conversation that you should be having with an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
But
But it's necessary because a lot of people like don't realize how recent all of this stuff was.
Yes.
Like
Mhm.
my mom went to a segregated school until she was in high school. Like it's like that's not even a full generation away was
Mhm.
all of that like crazy deep like racism and hate. So it's
Mhm.
like it's a lot more affected than people think. Like there's a lot more
Yeah.
of it around.
oh, I remember what Dr. King said. He said, "Meet hate with love," like something along those. That was
Yeah.
his.
Right.
That was his big MO to.
Right.
And he said, "Remember, you are my son." I think this movie was mistitled. It should have been named Martin King.
The Martin King.
The Martin King.
Wow. Well,
What?
I give you big props for that.
Yeah.
he just came up with that. That was not written down.
I mean, you have. Oh yeah, you got go. What were you about to say?
No, I just want to say for everybody who's watching, this is not us doing a takedown of this cartoon because
Hell
really,
no.
no.
There's so much amazing
Hell no.
content that is in the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
It's just done with a sort of, you know, that kind of sloshy X-Men animation kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's one of the things that struck me was when they go to, in essence, Potterville, America,
Mhm.
and they see Maria with who I think is like her mother,
Yeah.
scrubbing floors at the school.
Right.
And Miles runs over and says, "Maria," and Maria doesn't speak any English.
Mhm.
And the principal says, "Get away from those lazy,
Yeah,
shiftless." And that is so accurate. I mean, I had a very strong reaction
Yeah.
to that because of the truth of it. And being someone who was born in 1960, so still during the existence of Jim Crow, going into civil rights, and knowing, you know, how often African Americans were referred to as shiftless and lazy and thugs and criminals, and then seeing the same kind of language repeated towards the Latinx community, and knowing that this is the same propaganda, this is the same language, and to see that portrayed in a animated film
Mm-hmm.
in '99, that's very progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really am giving props to the content and the message and what
Yeah.
it was saying on so many levels.
And what was interesting, especially that you would appreciate this, the character of Maria prior to the Potterville universe changing, she is very intelligent,
Yes.
very learned,
Right.
knows more than any of the other guys.
Right.
The
The
of course,
smartest kid in the class.
Yeah.
wouldn't it be that the three guys try to outshine her? But she knows what she's doing. She's holding them up when it comes to like the knowledge. And then the only thing that changed was her lack of access to education. You know,
Yes.
that like you weren't given the opportunity to learn English,
Right.
to be studying. So it's like, so nothing changed about what she was capable of.
Right.
All that changed were the opportunities that were afforded her, and just whatever, what's the word I want to, roadblocks
Right.
Whatever.
that would have been standing in her way. And it's like, it's weird to think that the only thing that changed between the non-racist 90s versus the racist 90s in this film
Yeah.
was just opportunity.
Yeah.
Was just
Right.
the fact that the civil rights movement didn't happen, the acts didn't happen, integration wasn't made mandatory, people weren't allowed to vote, and it's just like, all that really changed wasn't actually the human beings, it was just the opportunities and the environment, and the environment then changed the people, which is like,
Well, his best friend changed.
Yeah.
Because his best friend had gone from being kind to racist.
Yeah.
And that was, I think that was a major change.
but it's
with
not
his
like
character.
he himself, his body didn't change.
Yeah.
He just was reacting differently to the
Right.
environment around him, which
Yeah.
is like,
Right.
that's what's mind-blowing when you think about it. It's like, I think that's what's hard for people, everyone who goes, I don't have a racist bone in my body. It's like, we don't technically have racist bones. We just have human tendencies that are
Yeah.
allowed to go
Right.
in one direction and go unchecked.
Right. And we accept the status quo as correct. We don't,
True.
we don't
Yeah.
challenge it and we don't question it.
Yeah.
I know we've had that conversation about the famous 2020 video with the individual from the Dodger head office, Al Campanis,
Oh, God.
and
Yeah.
being interviewed by Ted Koppel, and the things that came out of his mouth,
What did he say again?
that African Americans don't have the aptitude to be Major League Baseball managers, and I think something along the lines of blacks are not buoyant, and that's why they're not in the Olympics in swimming.
Oh
and
my God.
But this
and,
was
all
a sweet.
these other
This was
things.
a sweet man.
A sweet man, and every person of color with the Dodgers organization at that time
Yeah.
would tell you that Al Campanis was like one of the sweetest men that you would ever
Everyone
know.
knew, Yeah.
And he, to this day, did not understand that he was saying something wrong. He
Wow.
thought that he was saying something that everybody understood.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just
And-
thought he was
right.
stating facts.
So if you're raised in the culture and inbred in the culture, then you don't see it as something wrong.
Yeah. True.
And not trying to shift, but even, and this is not to say that any of these things are right, but as a child, I remember listening to Bill Cosby's comedy album, where one of the segments, now I'm a kid, so I don't really know what the humor is about, but Bill Cosby is talking about getting a Spanish fly and giving it to women. And a Spanish fly was code for giving a woman a drug that would make her susceptible to have sex with you.
Wow.
And then as a teenager, my friends would talk about, hey, let's get Spanish flies and da-da-da, what have you. So when you look at the Cosby case, when it broke, I immediately remembered that comedy routine,
like,
and it was
wow.
like, oh my God, this is something that's buried in my subconscious. It was part of the cultural conversation as a male that this is what you do. You drug women and have sex with them.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Okay.
Well, that's a different conversation.
Right,
But
right.
but it's still in
Right,
that.
but
It's
right,
absolutely
right,
in the vein.
Right.
Of,
So yeah, but going back to your statement about I don't have a racist bone, you probably don't realize it because of the culture that you've been inbred in.
Exactly.
You don't realize that you are
like capable.
right.
And
you're
that should
away
be both an
opportunities.
encouragement. It's discouraging in some areas,
right.
but it should be an encouragement, because it's like, if technically at the core of us we don't have to be one or the other,
Right.
we're not inherently good, but we're also not inherently evil. We just have learned experiences.
Yes.
And it's like, it's exhausting, and it's easier to kind of write it off as like, I'm good, I don't need to work on this. And it's like, unfortunately now, as coming to an adult, when it comes to areas of like, am I doing anything as an ally? Am I a good person in a relationship? Am I a good friend? Am I a good son? Am I doing well in my finances? Like, all these things, I'm just like, well, shit, I'm not inherently good at any of these things. So I got to put some fucking work into it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it sucks. But there is an encouragement to knowing it's like, but I'm also not inherently bad at it either. I can just
I have to
start like work on it. But that's the conversation you have, and it's like I don't want to say this in a what's the term?
discouraging.
No, not discouraging. I don't want to go off on like a tone policing type thing, but it is interesting when you realize, like, for people, they get turned off by the idea of like I'm inherently bad,
Right.
but when the question we should be asking is like, how can I be better? And and not use the excuse of like, but I'm good. It's like, all right, cool, but like, can we be better?
And let's just make sure we're all doing the next right thing.
Right.
When you don't know the future, just do the next.
Are you quoting Frozen 2 on me?
thing?
Oh my God.
I had the opportunity not too long ago to go to Jackson, Mississippi, and spend time with a friend that was one of the contemporaries of Dr. King, civil rights activists, very using education to bring equity to African Americans, Dr. John Perkins. And we went to visit the house of Medgar Evers, where he was assassinated. And for anyone who's seen the movie The Ghosts of Mississippi, powerful film. But when we're at the actual house and being given a tour by one of Medgar Evers' relatives, I just can't describe what it felt like being there and realizing that Medgar Evers was shot with the highest caliber weapon designed to kill an animal. And that one bullet, just one bullet, Medgar was outside in front of his house. The bullet went through his body and made several holes in rooms throughout the house.
Oh my God.
I've shared pictures with you guys to see it. I can't even explain how I felt being there, and because the great thing that Rob Reiner did was he restored the house to what it looked like at that time, and kept the bullet holes in all the furniture and everything that was there. And so this is now a museum very similar to, I thought about it watching the cartoon because Martin Luther King's house was the museum there. So I heard the story. One of Dr. Perkins' students, who was the first African American from Jackson, Mississippi during this time to go to college in California. He attended a Christian college in Los Angeles. And so he's only maybe one of a handful of African American students on this campus. And when Dr. King was assassinated, he is in his room in tears trying to reconcile his grief and his anger because the entire campus, and this is a Christian college, is celebrating the death of Dr. King, because as he explains, when you watch the news every week prior to this event, Dr. King is described on television as a communist who is destroying the fiber of America. So you have to understand that these people, hearing all of this propaganda, believed that they were celebrating the assassination of a communist.
Right. Once again, not inherently evil.
Yes.
Just being told.
Right.
This is what we need to believe.
Right. And he said that at first, his first response was to quit the college. And then his second thought was, I am going to be as in your face to every white person on this campus as possible. And then when he finally settled down and prayed, he heard God very distinctly tell him, you need to show them what they don't see. You need to help them see what they don't see. You have to help them know what they don't know. And that's I think we have an issue of romanticizing history. And so when we live on this end of it, we go, oh, we would have stood with Dr. King and we would have been arm in arm with him, and we never would have stood for this injustice. But then we see these very same things happening today, and we can't talk to each other. and this is the same thing that was happening back then. It's no different. I'm sure 30 years from now we're going to be on the other side of the history of what this looks like now.
Yeah.
And people will say, "Oh, we never did that." No, that it didn't happen that way. And this is why, as a pastor, it grieves me because we don't learn history, and so we kind of gloss over it and romanticize it, and so we forget that it was Christians who were on the side of Hitler in America and believed all the propaganda he was saying about the Jews. So then when the first boatload of Jews came to America to seek refuge, we sent them back because the propaganda said these are Christ killers. And we, when I say we, the church at that time felt that they were doing what was righteously right, sending these Christ killers back to Germany to be judged because of what they were. Now, if you were to say that today, oh no, we are for Israel. We are, these are our friends. But we don't. I don't know. We just cover it up. We
also have the
learn it.
benefit of knowing the hindsight of like, oh, this was right or this was wrong.
Yeah.
And the scary thing that I guess I started noticing now, especially like even with conversations as simple as like Colin Kaepernick taking a knee.
Yes.
It's easy in this moment to go like, well, it's annoying, it's a nuisance, it's bothersome, it's biting the hand that feeds you, it's whatever people want to say. And you don't have the knowledge of like, oh, in the future, this helped give way to all these things.
Right.
Because every civil act to like fight for equality is like, it's an act of faith. You have no clue if you're even doing it right because you're paving a way that's like, I don't,
exist.
yeah, it doesn't fucking exist. And you're just like, and there's the people who are actually doing it. And then there's people like me watching it going, and you have the stupid water cooler conversations where people are like, well, I believe this. And other people are like, well, I think he's anti-American, and this is just one aspect. And I'm just sitting there like, I don't fucking know because I don't have a fucking cartoon to tell me that this is
that this is what happened.
This is what happened, and this
going.
was the right person to stand by. And the only thing you can do is just be like, I mean, I don't know how people do it outside, but for me, I'm like, you follow wisdom, you follow like what history tells you, but also at the end of the day, I'm like, God, I don't know. Like, I guess anybody, even if they're not religious, they're just taking steps of faith. Like, I'm hoping that this actually does something for the greater good.
Yeah.
And also it's interesting, I would just put this out there, who knows if in 20 years, like, because people, they get like, I guess, I remember because Colin, he did a commercial for, what was it, Adidas? I don't know. Nike? One of them. And people were like, oh, but they were like, oh, he's taking like deals and stuff, or what was it, like promotion deals and things. It just kind of, it felt like it muddied his message a little bit. And I was like, in 20 years, we'll either forget about it, or if he did something actually significant, we'll paint him as a saint, and we'll overlook all of his issues, which is like, even Martin Luther King to this day, there's a lot of things that people say about him that kind of humanize him. Even in terms of, and I don't fully know it, but like even in his marriage and stuff, it's just like, this is a real human being who just happened to be doing really intense things that in the end worked out for the greater good, but it doesn't mean he was literally Jesus walking around. He was a human being who wasn't inherently good or evil, just doing
the next right
Gosh
thing.
darn it.
It had to come back.
Darn it.
I was trying not to interject it, but I was like, it's coming.
I was building up. I was like, there's really no other way.
There's no other way to say it. Just do the next.
The road to peace and justice is paved with confrontation.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable confrontation.
It's always, I mean, for me, living as long as I have, it's always amazing to me to see the loudest outcry at the greatest nonviolent demonstration. What Dr. King did was nonviolence and love, and they were vehemently attacked in the worst way. Colin Kaepernick takes a knee. He's not leading a protest down the street, even though that's still our peaceful right. He's not burning buildings. He's not in your face. He's just taking a knee, and it's just being viewed as treason.
Yeah.
So
Because and that comes to a point where it's like, even if he is, let's just say, because I'm talking even to people I know really close. Let's say he's doing the absolute wrong thing. Why is he doing it?
Yeah.
Because say he's not doing it. Maybe it isn't a complete insult. Maybe it's the wrong choice to make. Because like again, he doesn't have the benefit of looking back and going, oh, this is the. He doesn't have that Martin Luther King in Potterville of like, this is the choice I need to make to do it. He could be absolutely going about it the wrong way, but why is he doing it?
Yeah.
That's the question we need to ask.
There is something there. There's a reason why he feels like he needs to be doing or saying something.
Right.
We're not on the right side of history now to know where everything ends up, but we need to give grace to those who are like trying to make something happen.
Mm-hmm. The biggest way to make a wave and to make a difference is to just be like peaceful about it and give people. It's like when in customer service, when somebody's like screaming at you and you're just like, oh, I'm sorry, how can I help you, like what can I do for you? And it makes them even more mad because you're not doing anything wrong.
Right.
Like, they can't be like, oh well, they're doing this and that. They're just like, oh my gosh, like give me something to react to, and you're not. And it's just like, Jesus healed the sick and they killed him. So
and that's the hard thing, is you're talking about what essentially could be written off as a very godlike solution where it doesn't make logical sense. And I now, as a Christian growing up, you're like, oh, no, that makes sense. Like, just do the right thing. Like, be kind. And looking back, I can see how people could view Martin as being like, you're infuriating. We need to actually do, more than just.
like when you were in there, of course. Yeah.
And I can imagine how like now his image is used as hey, don't take a knee. What would Martin do? It's just like
he would take a knee.
Like, but I mean, like it's basically written off as like, don't make waves. Be kind and loving and do the Jesus thing of waiting around and smiling to the people who are being nasty to you and hoping one day they change. And there is a balance of like, how do you do the God type thing where it's like it doesn't make logical sense and you need to take faith, but then also not allowing people to kind of like walk over you or like making the steps like.
Yeah, those little steps that are like, okay, this might not seem like the biggest thing, but it's that first thing that's gonna like start that ripple.
And it's
like,
scary.
You have to start it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you ever watch Atlanta?
Yes.
There's a line in it where what does he say as a manager? He says to Donald Glover's character, who's Ern, he's like, I can't have you as a manager. You're more Malcolm, or no, you're more Martin, and I need Malcolm. And I was just like, it took me a second, but like later on in life, I was like, oh, I get that now. Like, I get the idea behind that.
That's funny.
But it's always so weird because it's almost like how people see Jesus, as this, he's just on the flower bed, kind of thing. But Martin did the bus boycott, and that hit cities economically.
Oh yeah,
so that's what I'm saying, that it was confrontation.
Yeah,
but it was peaceful confrontation,
strategic,
in which he still saw people as people.
Yeah. It's just like, all right, you're not going to treat us right on the bus. We're not going to use it.
That's insane. I was reading about that. I was like, holy shit! Like, and apparently the black cab drivers would charge less, so that the way that they could
get around still,
that they could help their people get around.
That's awesome.
Or people were just like, they either didn't go to work or they would walk. And I'm like, that's that. I haven't done shit like that. What? I turn my lights off for Earth Day every once in a while.
It's like what I put a filter on my Facebook photo to stand with Manchester. Like what? Or what was the Paris and stuff like that?
I don't remember.
But yeah, no. Hopefully, if there's ever situations like that are big.
So yeah, my final question for you is how. It's kind of a two-part. How are we currently writing off justice movements in favor of civility? And what do we do to like? What do we do to step out?
I think it's what you said earlier. The question is why is this going on?
Mm-hmm.
So when a group of women start a movement called Black Lives Matter, why are they doing this? What? Look into it. Now, if you look at Ferguson, this didn't get all the press. But when the Department of Justice filed charges against Ferguson, and they did the research, they found an any time that attack dogs were used, it was against people of color, not against white people. That people of color were arrested because they walked differently than white people. And then looking at that in a predominantly black town, 90% of the leadership was white. So imagine living under that kind of oppression for decades. For decades. So you have to investigate. You have to crucify your ego and be willing to say, I don't know everything. Let me find out this other person's point of view.
Yeah.
Let me find out where they're coming from. Let me find out what they've experienced, and not make these armchair quarterback assumptions when you've never stepped into the arena to know.
Yeah.
Crucify
Yeah.
your ego. That's an actual good wheel of morality
There you
lesson
go.
right there.
Crucify
That's
your
probably
ego.
the best one we'll have for the next month.
for the next year.
No, that's really good. Crucify your ego, and even if you don't feel like how people are going about it is the right way, regardless of whether or not you're right, maybe someone is doing it the wrong way. Why are they doing it?
Yeah.
A kid who's acting out because their parents abusing him doesn't know the right civil way to act out.
Yeah.
But they're responding to something that's improper.
If I'm living out God's love in 1 Corinthians 13, it says that love does not insist on its own rights and its own way. So I cannot insist on my own rights. I need to find out what's really going on.
Yeah.
As soon as if I'm the barometer of what's right, and I don't let anything filter past that, I'm part of the problem. I'm not part of the solution.
Well, damn, Jackie.
Preach. Preach, preacher.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
glad
Thanks
to
for
be here.
watching this
yes,
awful/amazing 90s.
it was.
It was-
I mean, it really. And what you said earlier about it is the kind of story that begs to be remade.
Yes.
With keeping the essence of the story intact.
Yeah.
And just tell it better.
Yeah.
But I was astonished and repulsed.
Yeah.
I mean, like in two different ways.
There was
but
one shot during the riots where they show the police officer raising the baton
Yes.
and then pulling it down. I went,
Yeah.
like, they didn't show what happened, but
Right.
you knew.
You know.
Yeah.
I have one little fun fact.
Oh,
My dad met Martin Luther King.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
damn it.
Where?
At the March on Washington.
Wow.
So my apparently.
Wait,
Yeah.
really?
So apparently my dad's side of the family, so my aunts and uncles and stuff, like participated in the march. And then my dad's immediate family, his brother and sister and his mom and dad flew down for they didn't do the march, but they flew down for the speech and they talked to him afterwards because my granddad was like, this is going to be important. You need to experience
Wow.
this. So they, after his speech, they met him and shook his hand. And then apparently, because I literally just called my dad because he's told me this story before, but he talks a lot and I don't always remember everything he says. So I called him and I was like, you met Martin Luther King, right? Like, I'm not making this up in my head. And he was like, yeah. And he just told me really quickly. But basically, when they all shook his hand, my granddad was like, I apologize for them. They don't really know who you are. And he was like, I'm forgetting what my dad just said. He said, but he was like, no, it's awesome that you brought them here. They're the future, something like that. I don't know.
Wow.
I need to get that actual quote. But and then
Were you about to say, I
apparently-
believe that children are the
the
future?
future. No. But yeah, so basically he's like, yeah, no, it's just awesome that they're here. And then apparently
Yeah, that was
Malcolm-
Martin Luther. Yeah, no, that's cool.
It's cool.
It's cool.
And then apparently Malcolm X was there. And Granddad also talked to him and was like, I'm surprised to see you here. And then Malcolm X said, I go where my people go. So I was like, I remember that quote directly, but yeah.
Whew.
So
I go where my people go?
Mhm.
How
Wow.
badass is that?
Wow.
All right. Well, did you want to do the social media plug, or do you want me to fumble at that for the next?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so thanks. This was fun, you guys. Make sure you are liking, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure you give us a rate and review on Apple Podcasts. And go ahead and give us those 5 stars. You know we like those. Give us a subscription on YouTube. Make sure you click the bell for notifications on new uploads. We are on all social media at Pink Popcast.
That's Pop with a P.
Pop with a P. And then make sure you're just sharing us with friends and family, and or post if there's something that like really makes you laugh in this, like do a little clip and post it. Or if you don't know how to do a clip, email this guy and be like, I want a clip of this part right here because I want to post it because you guys are funny.
And yeah, definitely, we like to think of ourselves as your best friend for traffic. So if you're stuck in LA traffic or wherever you are,
whatever city,
if you're
traffic.
stuck on the freaking, what is it, the 35? That's still they're doing shit on that.
I-35 or
I-35?
I-20
No, it's the
or
35.
somewhere. No, it's not the 35
Whatever.
in Texas. It's
If you're stuck on the 35 in
I-35.
Texas and you need someone to make you feel loved, you know what? We're the best friends you've never had.
Yeah, we'll love you.
Well, we'll make you laugh, we'll make you cry, and we'll make you think. But yes, until next time, this is the part where we introduce ourselves and say goodbye. So I'm going to say my name, he'll say his name, you'll say your name.
He's
and
done
then,
it before. He's a vet.
Yeah. Okay. But I know, but we didn't do it at the end.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, really?
No, we
We
only
do
did
it-
it at the intro.
No, we do it twice every time. We've
Do we?
always done it twice, yeah.
Well,
You
until next
guys-
time, I'm Josiah Rizzo.
I'm Benji Jones.
I'm Eric Johnson.
And on Wednesdays, we wear pink. Welcome back to the Pink Popcast, a
A cop culture Todd passed.
Wow. All right, let me try that one more time. Welcome back to the Pink Popcast, a gosh darn it. Okay. No.
Okay, do I got this one?
No.
Is
This
it
is
me?
it. This is it. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Pink Popcast, a pop. No, I got it. It's a pop
I got
culture.
it.
No.
3, 2, 1.
Are we smiling? Are we all looking?
Yes.
I'm shaking my head over to the side.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Pink Popcast, a Oh, no. 3, 2, 1. I got it.